$28 billion. A sprawling silicon fortress. This is the Intel Ohio Fab, one of the most extreme mega projects on Earth. 4 million square meters of raw American soil, soon to be a vacuum of absolute perfection. You are looking at a machine designed to manipulate matter at the atomic level. There is a terrifying physics problem. This massive structure of steel and concrete cannot move, not even 1 nanometer. A single microscopic vibration destroys millions of dollars of silicon wafers. The entire facility must remain perfectly still, dead silent. Nature refuses silence. The earth vibrates. Freight trains rumble. Wind slams against walls. This silence is not natural. It is forced, dictated by tens of thousands of tons of steel, executed through ruthless engineering decisions. The world starves for microchips. The United States demands an impenetrable technological shield. The battleground is here, a brutal expanse of Ohio mud. The enemy lies beneath us, weak clay soil, vicious weather. Inside this future fortress, extreme ultraviolet lithography machines will operate. EUV, mechanical titans, 180 metric tons each. They fire lasers at droplets of molten tin, 50,000 times per second. They print circuits smaller than a virus. Precision is absolute. A train passes 5 kilometers away. The seismic wave travels through the crust. It hits the foundation. The laser misses. The silicon burns. Total failure. The solution is violent. Engineers must physically tear the factory away from the earth, sever the connection. They design a dynamic damping grid, an isolation system. The cleanroom must float above the chaos, a separate structural entity, and shielded from the planet's pulse. You cannot just build walls. You must conquer the geology, crush the clay, pierce the bedrock, force the ground to submit to mathematics. The blueprints demand a fortress within a fortress, total structural decoupling. To isolate a megastructure from the ground, you must first dig deep into it. The ground always fights back.
I am standing 20 meters below grade, a colossal pit of wet mud. Diesel exhaust fumes choke the lungs.
The cold air tastes like pulverized earth. The sheer scale is incomprehensible. 100,000 metric tons of heavy steel rebar, an expansive iron forest rising violently from the clay. Thousands of iron workers weave a complex, mathematical grid of metal. Heavy construction machinery roars constantly. Deafening noise. 50 metric ton track excavators crush the loose rock. Some seismic vibrations violently shake your ribs. Night falls over the Ohio plains. The massive construction site ignites. Violent bursts of brilliant industrial orange. Intense welding arcs rip fiercely through the darkness. Molten steel bleeds heavily at 1,500 degrees Celsius, fusing the massive skeleton together. Showers of bright sparks rain down into the deep trench. The sharp, toxic smell of melting metal dominates the entire drop zone. This is the primary foundation. The infamous Waffle Slab, a monolithic, impenetrable shield of heavily reinforced concrete. Engineered exclusively to trap rogue seismic vibrations, absorb stray kinetic energy, nullify dangerous frequency interference. Deep below this level, a massive custom TBM chewed relentlessly through the hard bedrock, carving deep subterranean utility trenches and laying the critical subterranean nervous system for the advanced fab. The heavy armada arrives, a mobilized, relentless fleet of 100 concrete mixer trucks. They surround the exact trench perimeter, a coordinated, militant assault on the mud. They pump liquid rock. Non-stop, aggressive operations, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The continuous pour cannot halt for a single second. A single microscopic cold joint compromises the entire engineering marvel. One tiny structural seam ruins the absolute vibration isolation forever. Massive hydraulic diesel pumps violently force 300 cubic meters of concrete per hour. Thick, heavy, viscous gray sludge brutally buries the intricate steel grid. The waffle slab takes undeniable physical shape. 4 meters of solid, impenetrable thickness. A brutalist slab of sheer, unyielding mass. So look far above the dirt. Gargantuan super cranes pierce the night sky. 150-meter heavy lattice booms swing dangerously through the cold air. They hoist massive steel boxes. The critical air handlers. 50 metric ton artificial lungs for the future sterile cleanroom. Thick braided steel cables groan loudly under the extreme tension. Heavy industrial winches pull relentlessly. Crane operators maneuver these immense metallic beasts with exact millimeter precision. They lower them agonizingly slowly onto the hardening structure, securing the critical respiratory system of the massive fab. These loud machines will eventually push 50 million cubic meters of highly purified air per hour, violently forcing every single microscopic dust particle out, creating a sterile, perfect void, an absolutely pristine environment for flawless silicon wafers. The massive waffle slab finally sets. The wide gray surface hardens. Tens of thousands of metric tons of wet concrete lock tightly together. The aggressive macro construction phase looks visually complete. Zoom in closer. Focus hard on a single 40mm thick rebar bar, embedded completely deep inside the dark, wet matrix. Inside its dense, crushing core, a dangerous thermodynamic monster wakes up. Concrete does not simply dry, it cures. A violent, unstoppable exothermic chemical reaction. Hydration. It generates intense internal heat. Massive, compounding thermal energy trapped inside the rock. 10,000 metric tons of actively curing concrete. The internal core temperature spikes aggressively. Embedded digital fiber optic sensors scream warnings to the control room. 60 degrees Celsius, 70 degrees Celsius. Climbing rapidly without pause. The colossal solid mass is literally cooking itself alive from the inside out. Red alert flashing on the diagnostic dashboard. The critical thermal safety threshold is completely breached. The immediate, terrifying crisis is microscopic. Micro-cracking. The absolute enemy of cleanroom perfection. If the hot inner core expands faster than the cooler outer surface shrinks, the massive concrete slab inevitably fractures. A tiny, invisible hairline crack, just 0.1 millimeters wide. That is all it takes to fail. The dynamic damping grid structurally collapses. The vital vibration isolation system dies instantly. The entire $28 billion mega project becomes an expansive, useless field of expensive scrap. Action is immediate. Reaction is incredibly brutal. Site engineers urgently execute an extreme emergency thermal protocol. A dense, complex network of internal cooling pipes sits deliberately buried within the thick slab, designed exactly for this specific thermodynamic nightmare. They violently activate rows of high-pressure industrial chillers. They aggressively pump liquid ice. Freezing sub-zero fluid forced brutally through the artificial plastic veins of the hot concrete block, pushing thousands of liters per minute under immense pressure. The massive chillers howl loudly into the night. Heavy compressor units max out their strict operational limits, fighting back the invisible internal chemical inferno. They must rapidly strip the trapped heat away, force the dense core temperature down aggressively, manually equalize the dangerous thermal gradient across a solid 4-meter thickness of rock. Steam rises violently off the gray surface. Tense, exhausting hours pass. The operational fluid pressure is crushing. The digital sensors finally hold steady. The rapidly rising temperature flatlines. It begins to drop slowly. 50 degrees Celsius, 40 degrees Celsius. The unseen thermal monster is successfully suppressed. The massive concrete footprint submits entirely to the brutal applied physics of rapid cooling. The monolithic foundation slab survives completely intact. Perfect, uncompromised structural integrity achieved. Not a single microscopic fracture exists in the matrix. The ultimate, unyielding vibration shield holds its ground securely. The heavy, unspoken cost of this flawless perfection is human sweat. Literal blood from the tired, battered workers standing on the hot slab. 10,000 skilled iron workers. 10,000 heavy equipment operators. A massive human army deployed across 4 million square meters of raw terrain. They face brutal atmospheric extremes daily. Scorching 40 degrees Celsius summer heat bakes the exposed concrete. Punishing sub-zero winter blizzards freeze the heavy machinery. Human endurance is tested relentlessly. Heavy steel-toed boots trudge endlessly through thick frozen clay. Calloused hands grip freezing iron scaffolding tightly. Heavy rigging chains tear violently through thick protective leather gloves. Steel support columns freeze completely solid. Condensation drips constantly. Muscles ache. Bones vibrate. The physical human toll is massive. Blood is spilled on the iron. Then the paradigm shifts. The visual landscape transforms entirely. The brutal macro construction phase abruptly ends. The violent orange welding sparks die out completely. The filthy brown mud vanishes under thick epoxy coatings. The heavy lifting phase is over. The brutalist gray concrete is sealed away permanently. Industrial teal dominates the entire visual spectrum, a terrifying clinical shift in color. Cold, sterile, unforgiving. Absolute perfection becomes mandatory. The chaotic construction site becomes an immaculate laboratory. This is the ultimate high-tech cleanroom environment, an alien landscape constructed on American soil. Look closely at the massive steel substructure below the floor. Deep inside the dark, isolated floor cavity, a highly sensitive microscopic static vibration sensor, machined precisely from solid aerospace-grade titanium, clamped violently to a single 50mm steel beam. It monitors micro-seismic movement constantly. It measures physical displacement at the atomic level. The digital data streams endlessly into the central control matrix. Zero vibration detected. The massive 10,000 metric ton Waffle Slab foundation works flawlessly. The dynamic damping grid absorbs all kinetic energy. The entire factory is entirely decoupled from the vibrating planet. You prepare to enter the active clean zone. The mandatory gowning protocol is brutal. 30 agonizing minutes of strict chemical decontamination. Full-body synthetic suits are mandatory. Multiple thick layers of static-resistant fabric trap your body heat. Zero human skin exposure is strictly enforced. Your boots are mechanically scrubbed by abrasive rotary brushes. Your hands are tightly double-gloved. You breathe heavily through restrictive high-efficiency particulate air filters. Every breath is heavily filtered. Every physical movement is tightly calculated. The stakes are impossibly high in this teal vault. One single human mistake is completely catastrophic. A single microscopic skin flake falls. A single rogue human hair escapes the suit. It floats down. It lands directly on a highly polished 300mm silicon wafer. It instantly shorts a critical nanoscale circuit. You instantly destroy $10,000 of delicate tech. You ruin countless hours of atomic-level laser printing. You wipe out the next generation of global computing power. The psychological pressure is absolutely crushing. The filtered air feels incredibly heavy. The massive HVAC systems engage fully. 50 metric ton industrial fans spin up to maximum velocity. They push 50 million cubic meters of hyper-purified air per hour. A continuous, forceful downward draft hits your shoulders, pressurizing the entire massive cleanroom vault, pushing all microscopic contaminants violently down through the perforated floor panels, trapping them, removing them forever. They successfully built a complete vacuum on Earth. The massive sealed environment locks down tightly. The silicon heart starts to beat. The $28 billion Intel Ohio Fab officially activates. The immense interior atmosphere fully pressurizes. The facility is totally isolated. A silent monolith. The colossal EUV lithography machines wake up from dormancy. Extreme ultraviolet technology. 180 metric tons of extreme precision mechanics per unit. Resting perfectly motionless on the isolated dynamic damping grid. They operate in terrifying absolute silence. No grinding metal gears, no vibrating diesel motors, only the quiet hum of advanced liquid cooling systems. Thousands of automated overhead hoists move rapidly, carrying precious silicon payloads, zipping silently across the teal ceiling, delivering wafers to the ravenous machines. Deep inside the heavily shielded vacuum chambers, the physics are mind-bending. Superheated liquid tin droplets fall rapidly through the dark void. 50,000 exact droplets per second. High-power carbon dioxide lasers fire relentlessly, striking the falling targets perfectly. They blast the tin droplets into glowing, high-energy plasma, creating intense, extreme ultraviolet light. A complex multi-million-dollar array of perfectly polished mirrors catches this invisible light, bouncing it precisely, focusing it tightly, slicing cleanly through complex molecular structures, printing microscopic electrical transistors onto bare silicon substrates, creating billions of microscopic switches in a fraction of a second, etching physical features significantly smaller than a single human virus.
I stand outside the heavily reinforced exterior perimeter walls. The massive concrete structure hums quietly against the cold Ohio wind.
Barely audible. The brutalist exterior perfectly hides the chaotic atomic ballet happening inside. 100,000 metric tons of steel hold the secure perimeter. This is no longer a simple commercial factory. It is a critical geopolitical fortress. A $28 billion survival declaration. A sovereign technological shield erected against global supply chain collapse, engineered perfectly from the raw, unyielding dirt. The ultimate triumph of extreme human engineering over volatile nature, a permanent testament to ruthless mathematical precision. The blueprint of the future is fully executed. What impossible mega-project should we bring to life next? Tell me below. Subscribe right now. Demand absolute perfection.